الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي قد أذنت لك فدخل معهما تحت الكساء. Inshallah, by listening and following up on the Hadith Qasa, we would benefit the most and would teach that those children, they can listen, they should follow the same thing, except those they cannot listen perhaps. Decide Allah Salawat. فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب فقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن يا أمير المؤمنين فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله فقلت نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء قال له وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وصي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي قد أذنت لك فدخل علي تحت الكساء ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتا يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي قد أذنت لك فدخلت تحت الكساء فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرفي الكساء وأومي بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداه ومحب لمن أحبهم إنهم مني وأنا منهم فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. صلوات. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا غمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيعة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا رب ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. فقال جبرائيل يا رب أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبت الأمين جبرائيل فقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا غمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيعة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم. وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء. فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزل عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي إذن والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي ثانيا يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم مهموم إلا وفرج الله همه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي إذن والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فاضوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. صلوات. Inshallah, we will recite Fatiha for all the marhumin, those used to be with us, their loved ones, anyone you can think of. Tonight, the special program is Saba. Saba is for marhum who used to be with us many times, many years. Marhum Dr. Sayyid Hassan Arzu Zaidi, one of my dear friend also, and the marhumin of Zaidi family and all your marhumin. Again, those used to be with us and are no longer here. رحم الله من يقرأ الفاتحة مع الإخلاص والصلوات. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
فاتحہ مع الصلوات. بار دیگر صلوات.
محمد وآل محمد.
سلامی خلق میں محشر بپا ہے وفات حضرت خیر وفات حضرت چکی سے آواز بطول پاک بطول پاک ملک آتے نہیں بے اذن گھر میں یہ قدر اہل بیت مصطفیٰ، یہ قدر اہل بیت
برپا ہے.
کہا حیدر سے زہرا نے یہ رو کر کے ساتھ اپنا تمہارا چھوٹا ہے میری دو بیٹیاں ہیں اور دو بیٹے یتیمی کا ہر کو یتیمی کا ہر
کو سامنا
ہے. سلامی خلق بستر سے تھر تھرا کے اٹھی تھام کر عصا قبر نبی پفاتے ہیں آخری پڑھا ہم سائیوں کے گھر گئی رخصت کو رے کہا لو صاحب و بہل کرو
کچھ ہے
لو صاحب و بہل کرو کچھ ہے
میرا
ایزا تھی تم سبوں کو میرے شور و شین سے کل فاطمہ نہ ہوئے گی تم
سونا چین
کل فاطمہ نہ ہوئے گی تم
سونا چین سے
ہم سایہ کے حقوق سے آگاہ ہے جہاں لوگوں میرے یتیموں سے رہنا نگاہ باں اب ساتھ ان کا اور تمہارا ہے ہم کہاں بن ماں کی ہوتی
ہے میری دکھیاری
بن ماں کی ہوتی ہے میری دکھیاری
بیٹیاں
بچپن پا اپنے بچوں کے آنسو بہاتی ہوں تم پر حسن حسین
کو میں چھوڑے جا
تم پر حسن حسین کو میں
چھوڑے جاتی ہوں
رو کر کبھی حسن کو گلے سے لگا لیا آغوش میں حسین کو گاہے بٹھا لیا رخصت کیا کسی کو بلا لیا پڑھنے کے واسطے کبھی کو پڑھنے کے واسطے کبھی کو
اٹھا لیا
کہتی تھی گاہ بچوں سے منہ اپنا موڑ کے کل سونے گھر میں سونا
بستی کو چھوڑ
کل سونے گھر میں سونا ہے بستی کو
چھوڑ کے
سن لو وصیتیں میری اس وقت یا امام فضا سے میرے بعد عدالت سے لینا کام ہوشیار فاطمہ کی امانت سے صبح و شام دو بیٹیاں دو بیٹے بسر دو بیٹیاں دو بیٹے بسر
خدا کا نام
میں نے بڑے دکھوں سے یہ سب بچے پالے ہیں، حق کے حوالے تم یہ
تمہارے حوالے
حق کے حوالے تم یہ تمہارے
ہیں۔
ہے آرزو کے قبر میں مجھ کو حسن لٹائے، شبیر میرے لاش کا منہ قبلہ رو پھرائے، پھر خود کہا نہیں نہیں بچہ ہے ڈر نہ جائے، ناگاہ کھیلتے
ہوئے دونوں یتیم،
ناگاہ کھیلتے ہوئے دونوں
یتیم
چھاتی لگا کے بولی کے لو ہم تو مرتے ہیں، تم سے سلوک دیکھیے
کیا لوگ
تم سے سلوک دیکھیے کیا لوگ
کرتے ہیں۔
لے کر بلائے بیٹی کی زہرا نے یہ کہا، روتی تو ہوں زیادہ نہ زینب مجھے رلا، کچھ بھائیوں کے سونپنے کا سمجھی منہ دعا، تو ان کی رونے والی ہے زہرا تیرے، تو ان کی رونے والی ہے زہرا تیرے
فدا
کیا بس میرا جو مرضی پروردگار ہے، زینب تمام کنبے کی تو سو زینب تمام کنبے کی تو سوگوا، ماتھا حسن نے لاش کے ماتھے پر رکھ دیا، رو رو کے اماں اماں کہا اور غش ہوا، تلووں سے اپنے ماتھے کو شبیر نے ملا، پاؤں میں دم نہ پایا تو پاؤں میں دم نہ پایا تو یہ کان میں میں آپ کا غلام ہوں اور نور عین ہوں، آواز حسین آواز حسین و اماں آواز حسین و اماں حسین ہوں۔
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Just want to give the few reminders before we call up Sheikh Salim for the lecture for tonight. We do have another program tomorrow night starting at 7 o'clock with namaz. And also we do have the 2022 Saba calendars here. So please, there's a donation box as well. So please take as you are leaving. One final reminder is that as cases are going up, you guys want to remind everyone to please keep your mask on whenever you're inside the building and limit interactions as much as possible. Jazakallah. And with that, please help me invite up our speaker, Sheikh Salim Yusufali, with the loudest of salawats. Allah.
Let's begin with remembering the departed souls of Marhum Dr. Sayyid Hassan Arzu Zaidi and the Marhumin of the Zaidi family, and the Marhumin of all of the congregation who is present here, and all the Marhumin and Marhumat, by gifting them the thawab of the recitation of Surah Al-Fatiha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وخاتم النبيين والسيد المرسلين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعن الله الدائم على أعدائهم أجمعين من ليلتنا هذه إلى قيام يوم الدين. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, we've gathered here on this evening for a mournful occasion. It's a time of mourning and sadness for the lovers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. We've come here to express our condolences to the living Imam, the Imam of our time, Ajallahu Farajahu al-Sharif, on the anniversary of the martyrdom of his grandmother, Sayyidah Fatimah al-Zahra, salamullahi alayha. Please just say salawat. Our condolences to him and to all the believers on this occasion. I want to begin this evening's program by mentioning some of the fada'il of Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam, some of her merits, some of her excellences, so that we can, inshallah, have the softening of the hearts and we can be able to better experience and take more benefit from this gathering of ours. Brothers and sisters, you know that one of the titles of Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam is that she is known as Az-Zahra. In the dictionary, Az-Zahra, it comes from the verb Zahara, which means one of three things. Number one is to be like a light. Number two is to be something which is very beautiful. And number three is something which is very clear. And Fatima alayhi salam was given this name intentionally because she was like that light that was pure and beautiful and gave light to everyone and everything. In one hadith, a companion by the name of Ummara, he asks Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam, he says that why is it that Fatima alayhi salam, why is it that she was named Az-Zahra? And the Imam alayhi salam explains that إِنَّهَا إِذَا كَانَ قَامَ فِي مِحْرَابِهَا, when she would stand in her mihrab, in her place of offering her prayer, زَهَرَ نُورُهَا لِأَهْلِ السَّمَاءِ, her light would shine and would be bright for the people of the skies. كَمَا زَهَرَ نُورُ الْكَوَاكِبِ لِأَهْلِ الْأَرْضِ, the same way that the light of the stars on a dark night shines for the people of the earth. Her light was something that was visible for the angels. It was visible for the people of heaven. But it was also visible for those who wanted to take that light from her. There's a story that we've all heard before of this one beggar who comes to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. And he says that I have come, I'm a Bedouin Arab, I've come a long distance. I have no provisions to return. I have no food with me. I have no money with me. Can you please help me? And our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells him that I have nothing right now to help you with. It was a very difficult time for the Muslims at that time. But I can point you to a house where the people of that house will be able to help you. And he sends Bilal with this man, and he points him towards the direction of the house of Fatima salamullahi alayha. When the beggar arrives, he requests Fatima alayhi salam. He says that I have come from a distance. I have nothing. Can you please give me something? At that time, the hadith says that Fatima alayhi salam and her family, it had been 3 days since they had eaten properly. But this man was in desperate straits, and she felt compelled to do something to help him. She said, I have nothing to give you, but one thing that I was given as a gift from my cousin. She gives him a special necklace that she had been given, and she says, take this. Maybe Allah will give you some khair and some benefit by way of this necklace. The man goes back to the Prophet and he tells him what had happened. And when the Prophet heard of the giving nature of Fatima alayhi salam, his eyes begin to tear up. And he makes a dua for that man. And Ammar ibn Yasir, who is present in that gathering, he sees what's happening. And he says, Ya Rasulullah, I want to make an offer. I want to buy that necklace from this man. In return, I want to give him a mount by which he will be able to return back to his home. I want to give him a sum of wealth by which he can have for his provisions along the way. And Ya Rasulullah, along with that, I give you the gift of this servant as well. And Ya Rasulullah, this necklace that I just bought from this man, he takes it, he perfumes it, he wraps it in a nice Yemeni cloth, and he says, take this as well too. I'm giving all of this to you. And Rasulullah says that, okay, now that you've given me this, then I'm going to give it back to Fatima alayhi salam, along with the servant. And when Fatima alayhi salam receives this gift from Rasulullah, she says to the servant that you are free in the way of Allah. And she takes the necklace and it comes back to her. It was seen that this servant was, puzzled and perhaps curious and amazed at what had taken place. And they asked him that, what is your amazement about? And he says, what a blessed gift this was that Fatima alayhi salam gave in the way of Allah. What did it lead to? It led to a person who had no clothing to be able to sustain him, for him to be clothed. Someone who had no food, for him to be fed. Someone who had no mount, for him to have a ride to go back home. And on top of that, it led to a slave being freed, and for that which was given to be returned back to its possessor. Now, when we hear this story, we can ask ourselves that here, this man is in a position where he wants something from Fatima alayhi salam, but he has nothing to give her. But when she sees that he earnestly wants something, then she has something to give him. And when we come to these majalis and we come to these gatherings, I believe that we have to have that same type of spirit within ourselves. What do I have to offer the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam? Nothing. But the one thing I have is my faqr, my poverty, my destitution, that I have nothing, and that itself will be the source of me getting something from them, inshallah. One of our great maraji, Ayatollah Khamenei, hafidhahullah, he says that some statement that when I first read this, it really something that stuck with me. He says that Fatima is like that guardian angel who throughout history has been there for human beings. Not just for the people at her time, but throughout history, she is like that angel who's there for all human beings. Last night, we began this topic. We're discussing how is it that we can take a practical lesson from the life of Fatima alayhi salam, and we took the example of one of the last pieces of advice that Rasulullah gives to the ummah before he leaves this world. In that sermon, he addresses Fatima alayhi salam and he says, "O Fatima, i'amali, fa inni laysa min Allah, la amliku min Allahi shay'an." He says to Fatima that, "O Fatima, you should act because I do not own anything from Allah." And we explained how that this command to act was something that Fatima was already doing. In a way, this was the motto of her life, which is to have that knowledge and to act upon that knowledge. And we said that in the words of the Ahlul Bayt, in the teachings of the Quran, one of the life practices, one of the secrets to success is bridging this gap between what we need to know and what we do know, and what we do know and what we act upon. I want to pick up from there, and I want to quote a line from one of the beautiful du'as that's narrated from Fatima alayhi salam. There's a du'a which is known as Du'a Makarim al-Akhlaq, which we all know of, that's reported from Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, our fourth Imam. There is a lesser known du'a which is also sometimes known as Du'a Makarim al-Akhlaq, reported from Sayyidah Az-Zahra alayhi salam. In that du'a, she says the following. It's a very beautiful dua. It's a short but powerful dua. Allahumma wajjihni lil khayr wa yassirni lahu wa a'inni alayh waj'alni min ahlihi warzuqni husna al-adabi fima tawajjahtu ilayka fi. So beautiful. In this line, Fatima is making a dua. What is the axis upon which her dua revolves? It's this concept of amal. O Allah, point me in the direction so that I can do what is right and what is good. Lil khair. O Allah, make that be something which is easy for me. O Allah, help me to perform that. O Allah, make me among the people who do the acts of goodness. O Allah, grant me rizq. What type of rizq am I looking for you? O Allah, grant me rizq so that I can have the perfect actions, the most excellent and beautiful actions when in everything that I turn to you with. We said that this is something which is a motto of Fatima alayhi salam's life, and we see that in her dua as well, this concept of amal. Now, last night we talked about how one of the things that prevents us from being able to bridge this gap between what we know and what we act upon is that sometimes we simply don't have the knowledge that we need to have about the things that we need to. And we talked about an example when it came to the entertainment industry last night. Tonight, I want to explore another aspect of it. What is it that prevents us from following this recipe for success? And it's this concept that sometimes the importance of distinguishing between what is khair and what is shar, what is goodness and what is evil, that's not something which we're firm enough on. Or rather, we've been weakened in this respect. Our gauge of what is right and what is wrong, what is good and evil, it has been weakened because of the forces around us. But when we look at the teachings of the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, there is a great emphasis on this concept of knowing what is truth and what is false, knowing what is right and what is wrong, and putting that into action. One of the beautiful munajat of Imam As-Sajjad alayhi salam, he says that, Ya muna qulub al-mushtaqin wa ya ghayat al-muhibbin as'aluka hubbaka wa hubba man yuhibbuk. O Allah, I ask you for your love. What does it mean to love Allah? Loving Allah has a practical manifestation. What is it? It's in وَحُبَّ مَنْ يُحِبُّكَ. It's that I love the people who love you. وَحُبَّ كُلِّ عَمَلٍ يُوصِلُنِي إِلَىٰ قُرْبَكَ. Oh Allah, I want to love every action that is a cause for me to become closer and closer to you. This is one of the teachings that we have in our faith, that from the earliest of ages, that we should be emphasizing this concept of khair and shar, of good and bad, of truth and falsehood. In a riwayah, in a hadith reported from Imam Ali Islam, he says, "Man lam ya'rif al-khayra min ash-shar." If somebody cannot distinguish, doesn't have this awareness between khair and shar, if this is not a big deal for them, of distinguishing between good and bad, then what is the result of that? فَهُوَ مِنَ الْبَهَائِمِ. That person is like the beasts, like the animals. That's what distinguishes a human being from animals, is this concept, a deep attachment to this, a deep knowledge about it, a deep passion about it, about what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is evil. In one of the really amazing stories that we have of one of the companions of our sixth Imam alayhi salam, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, his name was Abdullah ibn Abi Ya'fur. Abdullah was a special companion, a person of knowledge, a scholar, a narrator of hadith, a man of purity, a man who was trying to develop himself. He would go to the Imam alayhi salam and he would ask his questions. And one time, he goes to the Imam and he tells him that, here I am, I'm asking these questions. You're sharpening my intellect. You're teaching me how to think about things. You're making me a person of knowledge. But I want to say something when it comes to my faith, oh Imam. What is that thing that Abdullah wants to say? He says that I want you to know that if you take a pomegranate and you split that pomegranate in half and you tell me that this side of it is halal for me to eat and that side is haram for me to eat, then I will accept that from you unquestioningly. Meaning that's something that for me, I'm going to accept it. Why? Because he knows about this concept of truth and falsehood, of right and wrong, and he knows where he gets it from as well too. He gets it from the people of truth and falsehood. And then the Imam alayhi salam, when he hears that from him, he says twice, may Allah have mercy on you. May Allah have mercy on you. This is a sign of a true follower of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. This is something that's important to them. Now, why am I emphasizing this? Because brothers and sisters, we need to understand our context. We need to understand what are those forces that are preventing us from this path of success that the Ahlul Bayt have shown us. When you talk about knowing truth and falsehood and right and wrong, the assumption there, the underlying assumption is that there is a notion, an absolute notion that this is where you get truth and falsehood from, and this is where you find right, and this is where you find wrong. But in the society that we live in, there is a chain of thought which works exactly against this, and the term for this is called postmodernism. Postmodernism is a type of thinking which became popular in the last, say, 30, 40 years. And it's pretty much prevalent right now. If you go into the circles of academia, this is the way that they approach things. And if we want to say what is postmodernism, actually, you can't really say what it is, but what you can say is what is it not. Because what they do is they approach everything and they approach it from the perspective of casting doubt on it. What can I find wrong in everything that everyone else holds to be true and dear to them? Why? Because truth and what's right and what's wrong is nothing, according to their perspective, is nothing but the construction of a human imagination. They have this concept of a meta-narrative, which is basically, in simple terms, like a big story. Everything that anyone has ever said about that this is the way things are, this is the usul ad-din, this is like the principles of how you should think about things, how you should approach truth, all of that is nothing but a grand story and a myth and a fable, which is subject to criticism, which we can attack, which we can say that, okay, well, I think that this is why you're saying it. It's not really the way it is that. No, we can go and we can analyze it from our own perspective. So this concept is something which we see is very prevalent, and you can see that it can affect people's attitude towards religion, towards these concepts of truth and towards concepts of falsehood. And it's not something which is new. Last night we talked about how, the examples of the Jahili poetry, and we said that, this sounds really familiar, this idea of this means of sound and words being used to have appeal to the lowest and the base instincts of human beings. It was there back then and it's there right now. Similarly, this concept of living in a state of doubt, it's something which is described to us in the Quran. Allah Ta'ala in Surah Dukhan, He says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم رب السماوات والأرض وما بينهما إن كنتم موقنين. The reality is that there is one Rabb, there is one entity, there's one being who is in charge. He's the one who is governing. He's the one who is making the laws. He's the one who is the source of all blessings. He's the one who is nurturing you. He's the one who's taking care of you and of everyone in the skies and the earth. But if only you can have certainty in that. Unfortunately, there are those who lack the ability to find certainty in this. They can't arrive at this certainty. They're always in a state of uncertainty. And how are they described? La ilaha illa huwa yuhyi wa yumit. He is the only one who's worthy of being worshipped. He gives life, He gives death. Rabbukum wa rabbu abaikum al-awwalin. He's your Rabb. He's your nurturer. He's your cherisher. He's your Lord. And of those who came before you. But there are people, balhum fi shakkin yal'abun. There are people who are in a permanent state of shak. They satisfy themselves. How? By being in a state of doubting. Oh, I'm not sure about that. I'm going to question that. What do they say? They say that, isn't it arrogant of you to assume that there is something which is true for everyone, that's right for everyone? How can you make such a claim? Everyone is their own individual. Everyone has a voice for themselves. And the Quran calls them out. Balhum fi shakkin yal'abun. They're playing around. La'ib is somebody who's playing a game. That's okay for a child. It's okay for entertainment, but it's not supposed to be a permanent state where we escape from facing reality by putting ourselves into a situation where we can just be playing around. This is something which the Quran described, and it's something which we can see reflecting in our own world, in our own society. Sometimes it's not too hard to find the expression of this in things around us. I'll give you an example. Maybe some people will laugh at this. There's a well-known song that goes with one of the Disney movies, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with, where one of the lines which is often repeated in that line, which many kids have memorized and they say maybe better than the kalima, right? Which is what? It says, let it be, let it be. No right, no wrong, no rules for me. I just want to be free. Now, if you ponder upon this, no right, no wrong, no rules for me. I want to be free. Maybe it makes us a bit uncomfortable when we start to think about this. That, okay, this is a song, but words are made because of how? Like, why is it that certain words are chosen? Why is it that certain themes are being expressed? Why? Because they are an expression of dominant thought and culture. If it was something that was at odds with the dominant thought and culture, it wouldn't be used in a song that's meant to be popular. And so here you go. There is no right, there is no wrong, there are no rules. I'm a free person. I get to define, I get to construct what's right and what's wrong. I get to construct what's true and what's falsehood. That's a simple example, but let's take it and maybe talk about something a little bit more serious. If you go and look at the issue of Planned Parenthood, for example, right? And you look at, let's say, the Supreme Court's ruling on this topic, right? What is it that they say? It's very interesting. If you go and look at the words of the Supreme Justice, how he expresses his opinion on this topic. And again, when we talk about these things, I hope that inshallah we can, be thinking and pondering and trying to learn from this. This is reflective of the society that we live in. What does he say? He says, at the heart of liberty, meaning that what does it mean to be truly free in the words of this lawmaking entity? At the heart of liberty is the right to define one's own concept of existence, of meaning, of the universe, and of the mystery of human life. You see how this concept, it's an idea, but how it can turn into a law, which is now going to be something which is a very serious issue. That how much right do I have over my own body? How much right do I have over the life of others and what happens to them? This can be defined by what type of philosophical perspective I take on the concept of truth and falsehood. I'll give you another example, which is something that we all need to be very aware about. It's something which is affecting us in many different ways, which is the topic of identity. Because when you start to question, what are the boundaries of right and wrong, and think of it arrogant to say that there is such a thing from before, then if you take that back and you roll it back to the core of it, then it starts to affect the concept of identity. You see it here in the words of the Supreme Justice that at the heart of liberty is the right to define one's own concept of existence. So does that mean that I get to define my own identity as well? Brothers and sisters, when we look at some of the challenges that our youth are facing, some of the social challenges, some of the areas where perhaps we're losing some of the young members of our community, it goes back to this core concept of identity. And in some cases, the issue goes back to when they were young, when what should have happened is that they should have gotten a correct perspective of who they are, of what their identity is. Who am I? Well, my faith identity, my gender identity, what is expected of me, what are the social norms, what is right and what is wrong. These are the things that are supposed to be ingrained when I'm a child, when I'm young. The Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they tell us that your time to teach your child is when they are young. Their heart, Imam Ali alayhi salam says, their heart is like that ground which is ripe to be cultivated. Plant the seeds at that time and then you'll see that they grow firm. But when somebody doesn't have that identity affirmation at the right age, then what happens is that when they face challenges in their life, then things can become very difficult for them. In the teachings of our faith, we're told that the concept of loving the truth and loving what's right, and the reverse of that, these are things which need to be, somebody needs to grow up with. And there's a very beautiful and a simple way that somebody can approach this, which has to do with the love of the people of truth and the people of right. Tawalli and tabarri, which is the hatred of the people who oppose them. You all know that one of the secrets to success throughout all the ages was to know the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam and to love them from the bottom of our heart. And that was meant to be a way of protecting us from these type of things. Because when somebody loves them, they know what's right. And that's something that saves them. Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, he was somebody who had arrived at this realization. They say that he would go to the Ansars. He would go to them. He was from amongst them. And he would go to them and he would walk through their stores and he would tell them, Aliyun khairul bashar. Man aba faqad kafar. Ali is the best of human beings. Whoever refuses that, that person has done kufr. That person has disbelieved. And then what he would tell them? He would be, Allimu, addibu awladakum ala hubbi Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Train your children on the love of Ali ibn Abi Talib. It's not just an emotional concept that I want to grow up and I want to have these. No, this is core to our very identity. When I understand that there are people these are the heroes. These are the people from where I take my morals and my values. Then suddenly it becomes this barrier against this type of thought, which seeks to question all that and bring it all down and put me in a permanent state of doubt. Who are they to tell me what I should do? In the name of this question, they say that, isn't it arrogant of you to, say that everyone should have this? No. Rather, it's arrogant of you to say that you should be the one who determines what's right and what's wrong. Who put you in the position of that authority? They say, what do they say? They say that, okay, well, your teachings of your faith say that when you eat your food, there is etiquette that you should follow. And one of those etiquette is that you should eat with your right hand. Right? Now, what is the critical theory of how they approach this? Postmodernists, how they would say that, okay, well, if you look at it, the person who said that was somebody who lived in a society which was dominated by people who were right-handers. And the norms of that time was such that it was considered impolite to eat with the left hand. And so that type of sunnah is something which would be actually discriminatory against children who are left-handed, and so therefore we should discard it. And they would even go to say it's arrogant to say that you should impose that on perhaps it's a form of oppression to impose that on a child. You see how twisted the thinking can become. And here we have a simple solution. But it becomes the source of all goodness, it's the saving grace for us. It's that torch which shows us and tells us how ridiculous these arguments are. They say that it's ridiculous of you to follow this sunnah. We say, no, it's ridiculous of you to have this type of arrogance. But brothers and sisters, having this love is not just simply words. It's not just simply, assuming that it's going to be inherited. It's something which takes work. It's something which we have to strive for. There are others who would like to impose other models of heroes that will capture the attention of our younger generation. We need to work hard to make sure that they are connected with the true models, the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa alayhim. We hope that we can be amongst those who understand the teachings of the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, apply them in our lives, convey them to others. Inshallah, this topic of bridging the gap between what we know and what we do, we'll continue it tomorrow night. But tonight I'd like to turn to the Masa'ib and the occasion of mourning which we have gathered here to commemorate tonight. Please recite one of salawat. صلى الله عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء يا بنت محمد يا قرة عين الرسول يا سيدتنا ومولاتنا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله
وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيهة عند الله اشفعي لنا عند الله. For those of you who have hajat, for those of you who have trials and tribulations, for those of you who are feeling the pain of separation from your Imam, ask Fatima alayha salam to intercede on your behalf. Ya wajihatan inda Allah, ishfa'i lana inda Allah. Let's take our hearts to that night of the martyrdom of the Lady of Light, of Az-Zahra, that home of Ali and Fatima. What a place of grief it is becoming tonight. Earlier in the day, Fatima alayha salam requests some private time with Amir al-Mu'mineen. She has some important words to convey to him. What does she say to him? The report says that she says, Ya ibna am, ma ahadtani kadhibatan wala kha'ina ولا خالفتك منذ عاشرتني. Oh my dear cousin, you have not found me to be somebody who has spoke any untruth, nor have you found me to be someone who is treacherous. What is she saying? She's saying, Oh Ali, if there's any reason you have to be upset with me, then forgive me, because I am leaving you. What does Imam Ali alayhi salam says? Oh Fatima, you are the one who is so knowledgeable about Allah. You are the one who is so virtuous. You are the one who is so God conscious. You are the one who is so noble. Oh Fatima, how can I ever say any word to reproach you? But there's one thing I want to say to you, Fatima. Oh Fatima, this musibah of your parting with me is something which is very difficult for me to bear. Oh Fatima, this is something that has renewed my grief of the loss of Rasulullah. Oh Fatima, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, from this musibah of your leaving us. Fatima alayha salam continues. She tells Ali, Oh Ali, I have some last words for you. Oh Ali, make sure to follow them. This is my wasiyah to you. Oh Ali, first thing, that when I die, bury me at night. Oh Ali, don't let anyone see where I am buried. Oh Ali, those two individuals, don't let them be there when you bury me. Let's take a moment to remember one of those individuals when he's leaving this world. In all the books of narrations, they say that he really left this world in some regret. What was it that was bothering him? They asked him, it seems he was troubled. He says, there's three things that are bothering me. What are those three things? Number one, it was that time that in order to punish that person, I burned him alive. What was the second thing? Now that he's admitted that he burns things, what is the second thing? I regret that time that I took over the leadership of the ummah. But what was the third thing that I regret? regretted, he says, the third thing I regretted was the time that I attacked the house of Fatima. But now that you attacked the house, don't you dare go to the burial of Fatima. She does not want you to be there. What are the other words that she has for Imam Ali? Oh Ali, when I leave this world, oh Ali, ghassilni. You be the one who does my ghusl. You prepare for my burial. Oh Ali, you be the one who recites the Salatul Mayyit. You be the one who puts me in the grave. Oh Ali, smooth the earth over my grave. But Ali, I know that when somebody leaves this world, that's a time where they are in the need of the company of the living. So come and visit me. Oh Ali, come and recite some Quran. Oh Ali, make some dua. Oh Ali, I want to tell you something. Ya Abul Hassan, la tansani. Don't forget me, for this is the last time that I will be speaking with you. My life is leaving my body. Oh Ali, I leave you with Allah, but my last word to you, oh Ali, is take care of my children. Asma bint Umays, she is charged with taking care of Fatima alayha salam. On this evening, she sees that Fatima is in a different state than normal. She tells her, oh Asma, bring me some of that hunud that Rasulullah, my father, left behind. Oh Asma, when I close my eyes after some time, call me. If I don't respond, then you should know that I have left this world. Fatima alayha salam closes her eyes. Sometime later, Asma calls her, Ya Sayyidati, will you not respond to me? But Fatima alayha salam has left this world. Oh Hassan and Hussein, come to your mother. The children come running, Ya Ummah. Every time we would come in, you would be there greeting us. You would be sending your salam. Why do you remain silent right now? Oh Hassan and Hussein, there is someone who needs to be told that Fatima has left this world. Go find your father in the masjid. Bear this news to him. Ali alayhi salam is worshipping. When Hassan and Hussein come to him, he knows there is something extraordinary that has taken place. My sons, tell me what has happened. Oh Fatima, what has happened? Ya Allah, how difficult it is for me to bear this separation. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. The champion of Khaybar, the champion of Khaybar has borne so many difficulties, but this one is too much for him to bear. Some of the reports say that Ali alayhi salam had to be revived with some water. But we have to say one thing, that at this time Ali was there to fulfill the will of Fatima. He was there to carry out the burial rituals, but who was there to bury the bodies of the martyrs of Karbala? When Umar ibn Sa'd orders his men to do what they did to them on the battlefield of Karbala. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. We ask Allah Ta'ala to accept this majlis from us. We ask Him to make us among the true followers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, to hasten the reappearance of the Imam of time. And if there's any thawab from this majlis, that it be conveyed to the marhumin who were mentioned before, and to all the marhumin and marhumat. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
فاطمہ فاطمہ اے شہید فاطمہ 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 اے غریب 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 فاطمہ دختر مصطفیٰ زوجہ مرتضیٰ آج حسنین سے ہو گئی ہے جدا خاک اڑاتا ہے گھر رو رہا ہے جہاں فاطمہ فاطمہ اے غریب فاطمہ 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 اے غریب فاطمہ رو رہے ہیں علی روتے بچے سبھی شور ماتم اٹھا سر کو پیٹا کبھی ہر طرف سے اٹھی ہے صدا اما جان فاطمہ فاطمہ اے غریب فاطمہ 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 آج تطہیر کی بارش آ جاتی ہے جلتا در گرنے سے پھسلیاں ٹوٹی ہے ہو گیا ہے شہید محسن بے زبان فاطمہ فاطمہ اے غریب فاطمہ 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 اے غریب فاطمہ رات کا تھا سما اور جنازہ اٹھا لے چلے دفن کو شب کو شیر خدا رو رہی ہے زمین رو رہا آسمان فاطمہ فاطمہ اے غریب فاطمہ 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 علی ابوہا بالوہا بنوہا ہے مقتول جس کے در پر ثنا کرتے ہیں جو رسول عرش تک جاتی تھی در سے یہ روٹیاں فاطمہ فاطمہ اے غریب فاطمہ 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 اے غریب فاطمہ چادر فاطمہ جسم ہے پنج تن مصطفیٰ مرتضیٰ اور حسین و حسن دیکھ کر خود خدا ہوتا ہے شادماں فاطمہ فاطمہ اے غریب فاطمہ 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 اے غریب فاطمہ کربلا کی زمین بالوں سے جھڑنا وقت ذبح حسین آپ کا سامنا بعد مرنے کے بھی سہ رہی سختیاں فاطمہ فاطمہ اے غریب فاطمہ 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 اے غریب فاطمہ جب رسول خدا کی شہادت ہوئی سیدہ کے لیے کیا قیامت ہوئی کم سنی میں ضعیف ہو گئی فاطمہ 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 اے غریب فاطمہ فاطمہ فاطمہ
یا زہرا یا زہرا یا زہرا یا زہرا Oh, the purest, pious Lady of Light. Oh, the purest, pious Lady of Light, an example of dignity and might, an example of dignity and might. How can we not shed a tear for you? How can we not shed a tear for you when we see the pain that you went through? When we see the pain that you went through, Ya Zahra, Ya MashaAllah.
کربلا میں تیری شبی بن کر اپنے بابا کی زندگی بن کر تیرا بچپن ہے سکینہ بی بی اور جوانی ہے زینب مزتر یا زہرا یا زہرا From a young age you have
faced tyranny. From a young age you have faced tyranny. Felt great pain as you lost your baby. Felt great pain as you lost your baby. Suffered sorrow as your father left you. Suffered sorrow as your father left you. Yet you stay strong. We wish to be like you. Yet you stayed strong. We wish to be like you. Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya
تجھ کو امت نے یوں ستایا ہے، تجھ کو امت نے یوں ستایا ہے، مرگ محسن پہ بھی رلایا ہے، تجھ کو بابا کے بعد امت نے، تجھ کو بابا کے بعد امت نے ہائے دربار میں بلایا ہے۔
سيدة نساء العالمين، سيدة نساء العالمين. Your mother, the Arabs' uncrowned queen. You're the center of the pure Ahlul Bayt. You're the center of the pure Ahlul Bayt. Chief of all those mentioned ladies so great. Ya Zahra,
فرش مجلس پہ اور مصلی پہ، فرش مجلس پہ اور مصلی پہ ہر جواں کہہ رہا ہے رو رو کر، ہم رہے نہ رہے مگے بی بی، ہم رہے نہ رہے مگے بی بی، تا قیامت رہے غم سرور۔ یا
by Mawla's side after Rasulullah, by Mawla's side after Rasulullah. You stood up to the thugs of Medina, you stood up to the thugs of Medina. When the door came crashing down on you, when the door came crashing down on you, Mohsen taken cruelly away from you, Mohsen taken cruelly away from you. Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra.
کربلا میں تیری شبی بن کر، کربلا میں تیری شبی بن کر، اپنے بابا کی زندگی بن کر، تیرا بچپن ہے سکینہ بی بی، تیرا بچپن ہے سکینہ بی بی، اور جوانی ہے زینب مزتر۔ یا زہرا،
Never been seen outside without your garb. Never been seen outside without your garb. Even in death, you showed the true hijab. Even in death, you showed the true hijab. But your daughters unveiled for all to see. But your daughters unveiled for all to see. Also uncovered your son's headless body. Also uncovered your son's headless body.
سيدا وويلا أبا سيدا وويلا أبا سيدا وويلا جواب أبا غربتا وويلا أبا غربتا وويلا أبا مظلوما وويلا أبا مظلوما وويلا أبا مظلوما وويلا أبا معصوما وويلا أبا سيدا وويلا أبا ويلا أبا ويلا أبا ويلا أبا ويلا آيالي وسيدا وويلا أبا غربتا وويلا أبا معصوما وويلا أبا مظلوما وويلا أبا مظلوما وويلا أبا ويلا أبا ويلا أبا ويلا آيالي هاي 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 هاي
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا رسول الله. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا نبي الله. الصلاة والسلام على المصطفى الأمجد. الصلاة والسلام على حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد ورحمة الله وبركاته. الصلاة والسلام على علي أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على البضعة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على الحسن المجتبى الولي الناصح الأمين. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا، لا سيما سيدي ومولاي أبي الفضل العباس وأختي زينب. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى جدك وأبيك وعلى أمك وأخيك وعلى التسعة المعصومين من بنيك، لا سيما مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان عجل الله فرجه الشريف وجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره والمستشهدين بين يديه في جملة أوليائه برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى اللهم على محمد وآل محمد الطيبين الطاهرين.
Brother, I have a phone, lost and found. It was left in the bathroom. So if anybody forget a phone.